And there we go. Um, yeah. Okay. Cool. 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 Now I can actually see that there is an audio level going. So I'll reintroduce myself. My name is Aaron Chen. I'm a data scientist. I what did I say? I have a PhD in chemical engineering, and then I went and did Flatiron School's data science boot camp. Graduated just in time for the pandemic to hit. So it was a very long search to find a job, but I am officially a data scientist now. I'm starting next week as a data scientist with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, and I'm very excited to go. The mission is really good. It's basically just help as many people as possible. So yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, and then you can definitely tell that this like shelter in place is happening is a real thing. I haven't gotten my hair cut since February, maybe January. I can't remember. So it is quite long now. So thanks to this headset for basically being like a hairband. But yeah, so it's been about 6 months since I guess the last time I checked in, and I just want to do like a quick update and then do some coding because I'm still working on some of my independent projects. The big changes are project wise, I actually got some web scrapers working for Melion. And if you don't remember, or if you've never heard of it, Melion is my independent project where I basically try to use machine learning and natural language processing to suggest recipes to a user. How it works is a user goes to the web app and then they basically put in a cuisine that or a dish that they like and the cuisine it's from, and then it searches a scraped database that will and returns five recipes with similar ingredients. It's been a long time since I practiced this pitch, man. It returns five recipes with similar ingredients, the most similar ingredients, and then those are all from different cuisines, and we'll display them on a nice web page. I can actually show it working. Actually, now that I think about it, so let's get a window open. Um, we have a window capture, and then we're gonna add Vivaldi. Cool. Let's make it so that you can actually see what's happening, right? That'd be helpful. Um, yeah. So um, I'm curious if, while I kind of struggle to resize this window, and it's like one weird thing with, I have a 4K screen on this tiny laptop. And one weird thing is trying to reconfigure everything when streaming. Uh, Streams are generally my stream's done at 1080p, so like trying to rearrange all the windows and stuff is complicated, and it OBS doesn't always do the nicest default for different things. So we'll turn off my webcam for now, and then we're gonna look at Vivaldi. Cool. So the web address is milion.heroku. Oh, herokuapp.com. And then we're going to make this bigger so you can actually see. Also, kind of a surprising thing since the last time I've done this, my computer can't seem to handle streaming anymore. It is very laggy, and I honestly don't know why. Yeah, I've never had these problems before, and it's just kind of surprising that there's seemingly brand new issues. So yeah, Melion has loaded, and here, man, I have no idea why this thing is so slow. It's very surprising. I did, I think maybe last time I might have had this thing. I'm touching it and then realizing that I have switched off my webcam feed so you can't see. I may have had my external GPU hooked up last time, and it is currently not hooked up. Mostly because what I found was that if I hook up the if I hook up the external GPU, eventually my computer will crash. Something about, I have no idea, but it just crashes. If I don't use a monitor hooked up to it, then it won't crash. Unfortunately, I haven't unplugged said monitor. So if I plug it in, it almost becomes like a time. yeah, it's only a certain amount of time before it just will just crash and the feed just ends. But if you look here, I have Melion open right now. And what it is what we do is we put in a dish name. So let's say buffalo wings, which is still my favorite example. Buffalo wings are American cuisine. We say feed me, and it will actually go through this database that I have scraped and created embeddings with the various ingredient lists for, and then we'll actually, assuming it doesn't crash or that my computer will actually speed up. Actually, this is on Heroku, so it might just crash. Heroku is it's free, but it's slow. Yeah, so we've got buffalo wings. We said they're American, and what Melion does is it actually searches with the Edamame API. It looks for 10 different versions of buffalo wings, and then it says, okay, well, based off the ingredients of buffalo wings, which are going to be like chicken, vinegar, cayenne pepper, salt, etc. It will say, hey, I'm going to make those ingredients a vector, and then process the vector to have different weights for each ingredient. And I'm going to see which of these actually has like the closest similarity via cosine similarity to this recipe that we fed in, which is buffalo wings. So actually, things have changed. I'm guessing something is different with edamame. Since I'm not in charge of edamame, I have no idea what's going on there. But last time I did this, it actually suggested a Vietnamese dish first, clay pot chicken, it was really cool. And now we can see that it's actually suggesting Thai wings and weirdly this hollandaise sauce. But yeah, so I have a version of this, like a developer version of Melion that will actually display the ingredients that's actually said it was looking at, and then we'll also display the ingredients and the weights for each ingredient. And then it will actually show that for each recipe as well. But if you click each recipe here, it'll actually go to the page, and then you can actually go make it if you would like to. Yeah. So, this original database was scraped from Epicurious, and it's pretty cool. There were definitely things I wanted to improve, and which is why I kept scraping different websites. One thing is the original Epicurious database, if we go back, I believe it was only something like 18,000 recipes, my mistake. And there are 2,000 ingredients, and there are only 24 cuisines represented in all 18,000 recipes. So what's different now with the scrape, I actually re-scraped Epicurious with different logic, and now it's up to 34,000 recipes. I haven't looked to see what the new ingredient space or cuisine space looks like, mostly because, I think I can actually show you on here. Let me look to see what I have to do now. The big changes is that some scrapers to scrape these because there are more recipes, and I thought it interesting to get more data, kind of natural language project. And I got to learn some new techniques. In the words of Anakin Skywalker, my powers have doubled since last we met. One big change is I have this network attached storage that honestly it doesn't really do all that much. I put files on there, but it's a little finicky with how other things access it on the network, so it ends up being like not really used and is just like a source of data backup for my desktop, which if my stream crashes, I won't entirely be surprised. My desktop is notoriously finicky, and especially lately. So now that I'm working, or I will be working, first thing on the docket is a new desk. This has been fine, but I would like to kind of move back into my room, and just kind of like not be outside here in the living room as much. I do feel very bad that I'm in the living room. and two, get a whole new computer because it's about time. One of the issues with my desktop actually is what was I going to say? One of the issues with my desktop is the capacity is very low. But yeah, so I've logged into my NAS as you can see here. I'm going to log into. I got a SQL server running on my NAS, which has been very interesting. Just because this thing has it doesn't mean it's very good at it. And I have got this database called Scraped Recipes. And what I ended up doing was using the Python library Scrappy or ScrapPy, not entirely sure how it's pronounced. I went and scraped Epicurus. And what I got, they don't have unique identifying ID numbers, which I thought was very odd at Epicurus, because essentially when I scraped their page, it seemed like they were actually using the combination of the recipe title and I think the author's name as like the unique identifier, which is fine, but that makes it a bit messy because SQL doesn't really like having text as priority key or primary key. So I just gave it a number because I don't know what else it would be. The only issue is now whenever I rescrape Epicurus, I have to make like a new SQL database each time. Anyway, just very beside the point. But basically, like what I'm able to get now is the new database has recipe title, the date that the recipe is scraped, the URL for the individual recipe, a photo if there is one, the rating, the number of ratings, a description of the recipe, the steps, as you can all see here, and then tags. The tags I kept because some of them actually have a cuisine flag in there. Not all of them, but some of them do. And the hope is that I can, if there is actually a cuisine tag, or because cuisine tag in the tags, I can actually use it for a different part of Million, which I'll get into later. But it will actually, it also has scraped the ingredients, which have to be processed, and then the steps. And I probably mentioned that, but yeah, it has the directions and stuff too. So I rescraped Epicurus. This has given me apparently double the recipes I had before, which is very cool. But I also scraped the original site I wanted to use for Melion, which is food.com. And food.com, as you can see here, like has the ID number, a recipe title, and this ID number is assigned by food.com. I didn't make it up. And has the recipe URL and the photo, as well as rating, number of ratings, the number of steps, cook time, prep time, total time, and then the description for the recipe, ingredients needed, and the steps overall. One weird thing with SQL is that I don't know if it's just my version of SQL that I'm using on the NAS, but I can't have a list inputted as an like I can't have an array as the data field. So I had to break the results from the scrape. I turned what started as a list and is better, honestly, as a list. I converted that into just a very long string with a unique set of characters to kind of break it. So later on, when I'm trying to process these in Python or scikit-learn, what I'll end up doing is just reprocessing them so that they're distinct steps in a list. Same with the ingredients that have to be turned into different vectors. And then what I started recently, and what I'll be talking about on stream, is actually this. I started scraping all recipes. And the reason why I was scraping all recipes is because they actually do have a flag in the World Cuisines page, which I can actually, I'll show that here. If we go to allrecipes.com, yeah, I'll leave the site. Excuse me, my family is texting me. If we go to allrecipes.com and we go to search, we if we go to search, right? Huh? How did I do this before? uh, there was a page that actually showed. Let's see. We want to go to world cuisine. If you look here, all recipes does have like some flags for cuisine. So we're gonna go to see all world cuisine. And then this particular page does mention several recipe cuisine styles. So I picked the first one. So you've like Mexican, Chinese, Italian, Thai, etc., etc. I realized like that actually means that they have categorization on all recipes. It's unclear if all of the sites or if all of the recipes do have a cuisine flag, but this is honestly it's better than nothing. So I'm going through here and trying to grab or find and grab all the individual recipes to get their ingredients and try to augment Melion's database to have more recipes from various cuisines. Scraping is not necessarily very hard, but it is pretty tedious and it involves and I'll show you a little bit on the stream today. It's basically just digging through the HTML and then checking to see whether something is working. And each site does things very oddly or differently. So we can actually go back to the camera. Video capture. Every site does things a little bit differently, in some cases very differently. So I guess a good example would be, I think food.com feeds back JSON for basically because these pages have an infinite scroll and they handle that information inconsistently. Some of the pages basically will just give back a JSON thing, and it becomes well, here's a JSON which can be converted into a Python dictionary, and you can grab chunks from each page that display I think food.com is 10 recipes at a time, and then it has information, and then you can go into those individual basically those chunks, grab the individual things, and then scrape the individual sites. That's essentially what I did. I built a scraper for the infinite page, and then when it was done, I built a different scraper that would go through each recipe listing in the database, and then grab the individual URL, go to that individual URL, and then grab the steps and the ingredients, and then populate it back into the SQL database. I've essentially had the same approach for every single recipe website now, so Epicurious and All Recipes, even though All Recipes I've only done 80 because I'm still testing. But just working through the different code and everything has been very interesting. I would say food.com had weird idiosyncrasies with this is how we're handling numbers and fractions and all that kind of stuff. Epicurious gave different, I forget what Epicurious's weirdness was. Oh yeah, not having unique ID numbers. And then for All Recipes, I think the weird thing is their pages are actually inconsistent. So some pages actually returned JSON, and then some I have to actually scrape regular HTML. And even in the 80 pages I've already scraped, it has those inconsistencies within its own site have broken the scraper. So today what I'm going to do is try to refactor the scraper to try to trick the HTML to work. I think part of the issue is that when you're browsing websites, your browser will identify itself in some fashion, and that also works with the scraper. If you don't assign a value to the scraper, it basically tells the site that it's a bot. And some of these sites will actually say you are not allowed to scrape. So it's a little bit weird. It's scraping, as always, is quite a bit of a gray area. So I don't remember which site it was that explicitly said you cannot scrape, but at the same time, there's nothing stopping an individual user from just going to each page and doing exactly what the scraper is doing. Yeah, I think like what I've done is I've flagged it as an individual user and then scraped only the things that are very generic. So I haven't scraped any user data. I've only looked at things that are pertinent to each recipe. So that includes ingredients, steps, description, and then a rating. Some of the sites will have like commentary on it. I would like to scrape that, but that is explicitly prohibited for different bots. And I don't want to take the risk of like one, getting in trouble legally, and two, I really don't want there to be like personal user data for just this side project. I do think having the user data would be very cool because it would say like I could have like, okay, well, these users all liked these dishes. Maybe if you liked a dish that this user liked, you would also like these other dishes that this user liked or didn't like. But that's stuff that can't really do. So whatever, it's fine. Yeah, yeah. So that's been basically what's been happening. It's been fun for basically testing some of my stuff for different interviews. I actually did this cool thing where I did a logistic regressor to try to predict different cuisines based off the ingredients. And I had learned that there are some not particularly well written articles on how to do classification. There's one person, I don't want to call them out, but they were basically trying to, they took the same data set because like an earlier version of my Epicurus database is actually online. You can, or actually, no, that's wrong. Sorry. Kaggle had a data set from Yumly that I considered not particularly useful for Melion, but I have it as well. And the reason why I don't find it useful is that like it has recipes. And each recipe has ingredients and a cuisine, but then the actual recipe is not obtainable. You can't go to a website to actually look at what the recipe is. So it's literally just like each record is a list of ingredients and a cuisine. So in my opinion, it is actually pretty good for a classifier because it's like, well, these recipes, this thing says it's Italian. Hopefully it's right. But if they can get put into a much bigger database, they do help because that set was like 25,000 recipes, I think. So it was a lot. And that was on Kaggle, and there was a competition to try to see like who can make the best recipe classifier predictor. So like, could you make something that successfully predicted if it was Italian or Chinese, et cetera, et cetera. So I decided to play with that just to get more practice with things like with like scikit-learn and then using regressors in general. And plus, I thought it'd be fun to like, let's do a logistic regressor, tweak it a little bit, and then see how we can make it better with, say, Random Forest or XGBoost or deep neural net. Yeah, so I read one article where basically it was very popular in Medium. And someone had written an article on like using a deep neural net to actually do the classifier, and I read it, and there's some problems with it. One of them being that the person went directly into making a neural net classifier on this, which I would say is not an ideal way to approach a problem. Just because like you have the tools to make a neural net doesn't mean that you should actually go do that first. And in reading their article, you could see that like it actually was a lot of work to build the architecture for the neural net. And then at the end, they reported like, oh, this is my accuracy, F1 score, precision, et cetera, et cetera. And I reread it and I was like, well, that's weird. They have major data leakage. They basically like they took the entire training data set and then trained their neural net on it, which is like, okay, but in previewing the data that is given to us from Kaggle, what you find out is that their test database doesn't have classifiers, so your test database is even less useful than the overall database, in my opinion, because there's actually no way to know if you got anything correct. I think on Kaggle's end, like when you submit it to this competition, they already had the answers. So like they can compare how your model did against the actual labeled test data. But for us, the train and test database that they give you from Kaggle, test you can't do anything with because like if you predicted everything was, I think the data set had 40% Italian recipes in the training data set. If you just predicted everything was Italian in test, you have no way to know because there's no ground truth. So it could be right, it could be wrong, but there's no there's no thing that say whether or not it is right or wrong. So because of that, what I ended up doing for my when I was looking at it, I took the training data set and I actually split it. So about 20% of it I reserved as the actual test data set. So I took 20%, left that out completely, and then processed the remaining 80% with k-fold cross validation. And the reason why I did that was because I didn't want it to like, I basically wanted to try to see if you looked at different random bunches of the data, whether or not it would be better. So I did a stratified k-fold because I noticed that like the counts of each cuisine weren't equal. And I wanted to make sure that like there was a chance that you could actually predict some of the less frequent recipes. So anyway, this data set or this article, they had major data leakage. They used the most complicated tool first, and then they reported that their overall accuracy was something around like 75%, which is fine. The numbers are fine because like hopefully you test so many things that you end up being like it bears out that it's good enough. The reason why I didn't like it was when I did just a logistic regressor on it with k-fold cross validation, I got like 78. So like the simpler one ended up being better than the neural net. So it's not a good way to approach a problem if your data set honestly is not that big, and you use a neural net right away. Even with a large data set like food.com, which is like 500,000 records, I would honestly probably still do a logistic regressor just to get like a baseline, right? Like you don't know how good your thing is going if you have nothing to compare it to, right? And I feel like if you don't have a baseline to compare to, that costs a lot less time and money to implement, and you just go for the most complicated thing, then it's hard. It becomes hard to justify, I think, to people who assign money or give grants because like you haven't made a clear case for why you actually have to do something. So like my impression is in industry or anywhere, when I was doing academia, like we had to justify our budget all the time. I couldn't just buy. I had actually had this discussion with my boss a lot. I wanted to get a better camera for our microscope because the resolution was very low and both spatially and temporally. And I couldn't convince everyone involved to actually go invest in buying a new camera because it was a few $1,000s. Versus like, it's a similar thing here. If you are going to use a neural net, the idea eventually is to use the GPU because it would be faster. But even the cheapest GPU, if you don't have a desktop, you're looking at getting one of these like enclosures here. A cheap GPU with the enclosure is still something like $500, right? So like, you have to figure out, is that going to be worth it? And then is it worth it to like, you have to use either TensorFlow or PyTorch, have it train, install a version of it to explicitly use the GPU. At least TensorFlow has a GPU version. And you have to figure out like, does your computer actually support that capability? And make sure that like when you install the drivers and everything works correctly. So yeah, there's like it wasn't as easy. Like I read that article and it was like, man, like want to help this person. I don't want to like say too many negative things about them because I think they're still an undergrad. But it was a little concerning because like they did technically have the title of data science intern, and I think they're pursuing a degree in data science, and it was like just doing this wasn't the best approach for that. Anyway, yeah. So we are going to basically start looking at